Jeremy, it is good to see you on the screen. Thank you so much for doing this. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Doing great. I went out to the mountains. It's my happy place. I was out in Colorado in the Aurora area. I did some hiking this week, so I am happy. that, that brings me joy.
That's amazing.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say my family and we just got back from vacation and it was wonderful while we're there, but I think I'm like in that post-vacation depression a little bit of like, hey, I was just on an island on the beach sipping pina coladas, and even though the weather's nice here in Minnesota, it's certainly not the same.
Jeremy, I don't know about you, but I don't know who these psychopaths are who take a vacation and they come back recharged, ready to go back to work.
Yeah,
I am not one of them. I leave.
right,
I'm going, how can I not come back?
right,
That's
right.
that's not that I don't enjoy what I do, but I am never like, oh my gosh, after that vacation, I couldn't wait to get
Yeah.
back doing this. Really quickly, and we're going to put your LinkedIn and info on there. Really quickly, folks, what do you do in this business? Tell folks a little bit about you.
Sure. Yeah. So, Jeremy Hyde, I'm the Senior Director of Customer Service at Sun Country Airlines. So, I say that's my day job. I lead a really amazing team in a very interesting and challenging industry. In addition to that, in my spare time, I serve as the president of the Midwest Contact Center Association. MWCCA has both a Minneapolis and a Chicago chapter. And then I also, as of recently, serve as the president of the Work from Home Alliance as well. So I am very entrenched in contact center space.
I couldn't wait to talk to you. I've gotten to know you a little bit recently here, and I've been watching your stuff. And I love your stuff, and I always love perspectives from people like you because there's plenty of people who have lots of opinions who don't have skin in the game. Jeremy has tons of skin in the game. I used to, not anymore. I'm a talking head now. But I guess the place I want to start is I'd love your perspective on how things have changed or how things have been the same. So I ran a contact center. I've run many contact centers over the course of my life, but in
Hmm.
the mid 2000s, attrition was in the 7% range. So I've gone back and I've checked 15 years later, and attrition is still at the 78% per month range. And I guess my question would be is that typical? What are your thoughts on this attrition problem that seems to kind of be stagnant?
Yeah. I mean, there's an answer I'm supposed to give you, right? Which is like, we're creating a problem, we're terrible, we need to be better, and like
Yes.
people are not gonna like me for the actual answer, probably. My actual answer is I, I'll say to start with, 7 to 8% per month is too high. We're looking
Yeah.
at on a 12-month basis, what, 85 to
Hmm.
100% attrition
Yeah.
rate. Too
Yeah.
high. That's not
All
acceptable.
right.
With that said, there is probably a level of attrition that's higher than we would like that we have to accept, given the nature of the role, the nature of the candidate pool, the wages that are paid, all of those things. I think oftentimes contact center people don't really compare our environments and our roles to similar roles. And so then we say, like, well, why do we have greater attrition than this other department or this type of a role? But I mean, should we be looking at things instead of like, if they weren't working in my contact center agent role, where might this person be working? Maybe it's a retail job. They're working at the local Nike or a restaurant, DoorDash. Like, those are the sorts of roles that might be the alternatives to what they're doing. So if we compare against that, then is the attrition similar
Mm.
or is it worse? It's probably pretty similar, right? It's similarly high. And so there's something like within that, and again, like, should we always strive to be better? Yes. But when we compare against the other roles that people would be working, we're seeing similarly high attrition rates.
Was not expecting that answer from you, but I love the candor because I think you ask a fair question. I mean, at the end of the day, if you sort of think about the job, unless you're going to go make radical changes to it, you
Hmm.
can change around the middle. But today, as we sit here today, the job compares favorably to what you've kind of mentioned, right? So kind of think sort of retail in sort of in-person customer service, and they have kind of similar struggles. So I think Jeremy, I would say to all those listening, but the contact center leaders, I think you've given me a new perspective to say, well, if you believe that this job is a different type of job, it's a higher caliber type of job, that's all talk. You got to actually go out and make that a reality first, which is not going to be easy and happen overnight. We're talking pay here. We're talking really structural things of your company that you're going to need to go do to do that. I love that answer. I do want to talk about, to the extent that every contact center, though, has an attrition problem of sorts. At least, there's some tolerable, but there's some kind of deal. And I have not seen movement overall, right? I mean, there are examples here and there. Love you to talk about why this problem is so tough to tackle, whether it's, leave the attrition aside, engagement, employee engagements, being engaged, the ones who are there.
Yeah.
Why has this been so tough?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's things that we can do to bring that attrition down and to bring the engagement up, and we've had some successes at Sun Country around that. But to your point of like, as a general rule, like, why is this so tough? I'll give you an example of something that happened at work recently that kind of will cement the point. I think is like, we recently had a customer that was calling over and over and over again.
Yeah.
They were cussing at the team. They were making threats of physical harm, just really abusive, harassing type behavior. And, luckily we're in a space where we can invite this customer not to be a customer anymore and say, like, we're not going to do business with you, and we're going to not allow you to call and talk to our team anymore. But that's after they've already abused our team members, right? Think about those 5, 10, 20 minutes that you're on the phone with this person. You're questioning your life choices, right? Like, why should I get cussed out by this guy and have him say I'm the this and that and the other thing? It's a tough space to be in. People always often ask, like, why is customer experience getting worse? And, okay, sure. I guess I would ask the question, why are customers getting worse? Why do they think that it's okay to be more abusive? 20, 30, 50 years ago, were people talking about how their customer Joe that walked into the corner store was threatening them with physical harm? No. Like, we've taken a turn here, and just the pay, the stress, all of that thing, it's like, it's a tough proposition.
It is. I want to talk about some of the, staying on that train, and boy, you're dropping some gems here. I think too many people, and I talk a little bit about waiting for service, and I've been doing a lot of writing here. I'm spending a whole chapter on the customer themselves. I actually believe as a society, we get the government we deserve, we get the customer service we deserve, like, and that we demand. And there's kind of a deal. And so I think people miss that. I want to just acknowledge for a second what Jeremy said here, which I don't hear enough of. Companies are often too, in this whole customers always right business, they're the ones who pay up. It's all of that is true. But my gosh, there has got to be a line. Is there a dollar you're not going to, is there a dollar you will not walk away from? Where is the line? And I think I got to just commend you and your organization, and at least taking the action and saying, hey, this customer, do not align with, we do not want your money. And too much of that goes on, and it puts these folks in a position where, again, questioning your life choices. I like, it's sort of like, I am in this thing. Why is this person? And oh, by the way, it's a job where customer service almost never creates any of these reasons people are on the deal. So number one, I had nothing to do with why we're even here. I'm here to try to help you. And I am under whatever my constraints, and you are just coming for me. So I love that. I go back to, again, my time sort of doing this. One of the more humiliating things then, and that's probably my ego, I'll work on that and pray about it, was that I would often have my employees, I worked for Converges at the time, leave, quit, and I would run into them a week later getting lunch because we shared a parking lot with the McDonald's. Oh, what the heck? Like,
what are you doing here?
Right. So you work here. You left, and they paid, I mean, we didn't pay great then. And they paid, was similar, but a little bit lower. I'm like, why are you taking a 50-cent pay cut for here. And that was the moment, that was my red pill moment, to borrow a term, Jeremy. Like from that point on, I have been obsessed with, boy, we've got to figure out how to make this job better. So I would ask you, why hasn't, I think pay has gotten incrementally better. We fund up the job a little more, games, pizza party, and all of that. Why do you think that has not solved the problem? And any words of comfort to myself of this lifelong humiliation of people leaving my deal and going?
Yeah, that's tough. You're like, man, I worked at McDonald's when I was 15, and now
Yes,
my adult employees are leaving what I thought was a nice job, and they're working.
air
They're
conditioning.
yeah, exactly. You're not over the fryer. Like there was a period of time actually, just to make you feel a little bit better, maybe like through the kind of pandemic era, I should say. I don't know if you recall this, but all of a sudden, like the fast food chains, like they started paying like $4 more an hour, like
Right.
overnight, right?
You are right. You are
It
right.
took time for everyone else to catch up with some of those. But I remember a point where the gas station down the road and the McDonald's in the town over were paying like maybe the same or more than what I was paying my new hires. And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
boy, that's not good. We need to change that. Because to your point, then it's like if that's where the pay is, which job is more taxing mentally? The
Yes.
one where you're taking some orders and flipping some burgers and making some fries, or the one where you're monitored every moment of your day, the
Mm, mm.
vast knowledge that you have to gain and retain is immense, and then customers can just be really, really rough, and they don't just like grab their burger and leave. They keep coming back and back again. It's always going to be a tough job, and
Yes.
there's going to be we have to control the things that we can control, though, to make that work environment and the career progression opportunities and all of that as positive as they can be and make it better than the McDonald's option that they have. So, what's the pay, the flexibility, the growth opportunity, the work environment? For my team, we were struggling with attrition and we started looking and going, all right, what type of employee stays and what type of employee leaves? And rather than trying to convince the people that were leaving to stay, we said, well, let's stop hiring people that aren't going to stay. Let's hire the ones that are going to leave. Let's hire the ones that are going to stay. But for us, it was part-time work from home near an airport where they could take advantage of flight benefits.
Mm.
Those are the people that are going to stay for us. And so that's who we hire. And so rather than trying, and outside of the Minneapolis, St. Paul area too, by the way, rather than trying to force it, we couldn't get full-time people in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis metro area to stay. Why are we fighting against that? Let's go and hire the people that we know are going to stay. So there's kind of this mix of like create the right environment, but also understand who you are and where your value proposition aligns with the market so that you're not, trying to swim upstream.
Jeremy, you and I are going to be BFFs. I love your pragmatism. I remember this is a way, way back. I think we're in the '06 area. They did some sort of role thing, and I ended up in HR, which is a scary thought. But had recruiting. So they put operations to run sort of, not recruiting, hiring. So in essence, HR does a screen, and me and my team made the decisions on who got inside the door or not. Boy, the friction we would have with HR.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'll have these conversations where here's this kid, fantastic. She's probably gonna cure cancer one day. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, no, we're not gonna hire her. She's gonna be gone
Mm-hmm.
soon. Like,
Right, right.
they'll go,
Yeah.
isn't this what we aspire to be? I'm like, yeah, in another world, but not no. And then there would be someone who they would consider, well, wait a second, you're picking this person over this phenomenal, just in med school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
problem. Like,
Yeah. 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 I've had some of those where I'm like, they have a PhD. Like, why do they want to work here? Something is not adding up here. The incredible thing though about hiring into like a customer service contact center team, you can find amazing talent everywhere.
that's right. That's great.
And so like that's the wonderful thing that I think people need to keep in mind is because we will provide you with the tools and the knowledge and the coaching and the development, then it's really just about like showing up with the right attitude that like I want to show up, I want to be here, and I want to try hard. That's all you have to find, and you can find that around the world.
That is spot on. I'm gonna get back to solving this problem here, but I want to take a little detour. I want to ask you a question, get to know you a little bit better. I'm going to ask you, what is a purchase under $50 that's been most impactful to your life? And to buy you a little bit of time, I'll go first.
Okay.
Mine is the neti pot. And I haven't, yes, so the neti pot, I have allergies. In fact, before we hit record, I was telling you I was sneezing up a storm. I did that. When things get really bad, so if you know what a neti pot, it's this pot, you pour water into it, saline. There's a beautiful person on there who's elegantly just pouring the water in one nostril and it's coming in. When I do it, I'm waterboarding myself. I am almost drowning in my own. But when allergies get really, really bad for me, nothing else, no drugs, nothing else does as good of a job of getting me right. And that's an under $50 purchase. What would yours be?
So I'm like naturally cheap to a fault. Like my wife will tell you, I will spend far too much time on any purchase over $50. So most of my purchases are probably under. I actually just got my first pair of nice shoes like ever recently, I think, because I'm so cheap. I bought like $130 tennis shoes, and
Look
I
at
just
you.
I wasn't sure I should be doing that. They're very nice though. I've come to appreciate them. But I wear glasses, not when I'm sitting at the computer, but generally I wear glasses. And I found online Zenni is a company that sells glasses, and they're much cheaper than most anywhere else that you'll get them. Prescription sunglasses for around $50. And
Okay.
that's kind of life changing because it's like either, I don't know, I found myself either like I'm just blind by the light or I can't see wearing regular sunglasses. But again, I'm cheap, so I can't spend $400 or $500, $600 on a pair of prescription sunglasses. So when I found that I could get like a nice looking and functional pair of sunglasses, prescription sunglasses for around $50, I've probably bought 5, 6 pairs of them at this point, and I've really enjoyed having those.
That's awesome. The folks is any my people are going to send you guys the bill for this free commercial we just
Yeah,
gave you guys,
yeah.
but we will send you. That's awesome. I'm gonna look them up on a serious note because I struggle with that too. Getting back to, I want to round out that conversation. Are you hopeful that we are going to, you talked, I picked up on your, let's focus on what we can control. Are you hopeful we will get to a point where we'll give this role, this contact center, call center, or whatever role, freedom? Just the whole go out, I trust you, go do your thing, of course, within reason. Are you optimistic on that topic?
You know, I'll start by saying like I think it's good that by and large the conversations that are happening in networking spaces on LinkedIn over the last 20 years have been very agent focused about culture. So like that's a positive. I want to caution people though, because I think sometimes we get a little Pollyanna and not like real about what like we can and should do. And so the thing about empowering people and giving them this level of freedom is like there needs to be the appropriate kind of guardrails in place. Otherwise, we have a consistency problem. So my credit union was featured by a Harvard study years ago on this very topic. They had a new CEO that came
Okay.
in,
Yeah.
and the CEO was like, I trust our people. Our people are smart. They know their customer. They should make decisions that make sense for that individual customer. If you want to waive a fee, waive a fee. You want to waive 10 feet, like you are empowered. And everybody was like, yes, this is amazing. You're right. I do know the customer. You don't. Like, let me do my thing. And everybody was super thrilled. And then the thing is, like, you're way nicer than I am. And so you waive everybody's fees, and I don't waive anybody's fees. And so what would start to happen is customers were getting frustrated with the organization. The team members were getting frustrated with each other because it was the Wild West. Everybody just did whatever they wanted. And now customers are calling back to get the answer that they want because Amos is going to waive the fee, but Jeremy is not. And so that's where I caution people. Like, you have to take the appropriate steps, figure out like what is appropriate, where does it make sense. It sounds nice to say let people make the call, but if you have dozens, hundreds, thousands of people, you're going to get dozens, hundreds, thousands of different decisions that are happening every single day. And now your experience is not consistent. People are getting frustrated. So We have to kind of like pick our spots and make sure that we're giving them the appropriate guidance.
That is on the money in that you don't want to replace one problem with another one, which is your service ends up being unpredictable, erratic almost, and no one can kind of, it's a lottery. It's
Yeah.
the agent shop and you're encouraging. Let me put you on the spot. What have you done that has worked within your organization, past and current?
Yeah. So we actually, getting back to the example I was just talking about, we piloted something for fees for us as well. The team's always complaining like they want to be able to have the power, and we ran a pilot, and we actually had some similar experiences to what I just described. The hope was like we set our baseline and we said we're going to try this for a period of time with a group of people and we're going to monitor it. And so we knew what the baseline was of what would typically happen in our existing environment. And so we went out and we said, all right, here is some guidance. Ultimately, you have the decision, but here is some things to think about. Maybe you approach it in this way. And we kind of saw the same thing, is that the individual decision-making process was wildly different from employee to employee. You had some
Interesting.
super generous, some that weren't generous at all, and a bunch of people kind of in the middle. When you start talking about like deviating from the standard, I think like what we have to remember is I'm on with a customer. They're either yelling at me and it's very uncomfortable or something like that, or like they're giving me a sob story, and like customer service people are super empathetic and they want to help. And so if you say like, here's 5 steps to follow, start with this and that, but it's your decision. In a lot of those cases, we're going to skip steps 1 through 4. We're going to go to step 5, give the person what they want. So we actually had to pull that back, set some standards that they could work within. We try to do some things where it's like, here's the normal standard. If you run into this scenario, here's an internal exception that you're allowed to grant. Everything outside of that, though, let's talk to a lead, let's talk to a manager, that sort of thing. Some of the conversations I try to have with folks too, though, is like we should be comfortable with the policies and the standards that we're setting. Let's make sure we're setting the right standards and the right policies and
Right.
expectations for our customers and for our business, where we don't feel bad about sticking to them.
Man, that's it. We are, in the interest of time, I won't take us down that rabbit hole, but that point you just made is, gosh, so money, right? You know, Bob Furness and I, which we both know, we're having a conversation about his experience where he's trying to return this battery in a suitcase thing. And they had a policy that you had a 1 hour window to change your mind after you've, and like he got all the way to the supervisor and he goes, well, I was on hold for, technically I called before the 1 hour. I didn't know the 1 hour thing existed, but
Yep.
technically I did call before the 1 hour thing, but then there was the hold and they stuck to. That's the kinds of things where it's like no one can defend it, right?
Right.
It's indefensible, and any 2 reasonable people can look at this and go, no, this doesn't make sense. So if you at least start there in a reasonableness column, and like everyone can look at this policy and go, gosh, yeah, we feel about it. We feel great about it. And then there may be some where it's like, okay, I don't feel horrible about this policy. I wish it was a little bit more generous. And if that's the pan we were working on, I love your insight, because it's making me think at times we're trying to solve the symptoms,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. To the point that you just made, that Bob's experience, and you don't think about that as the leader when you're setting the policy and whatnot, right? But we actually, there was a period of time, I think it was around the COVID area, where volume went crazy, and somebody raised that. Someone from the team was, well, by the time I talked to them, this amount of time had lapsed. But if you look at when they first called us, and I was like, well, then give it to them. We shouldn't base it based on when we were able to answer the phone. We should base it on when they tried to contact us. So yes, we need to listen. We need to stay close to the front line and be
Yes.
open. And like it needs to be a two-way conversation, because there's a bunch of stuff we are not seeing and hearing that our team needs to bring to us that we need to be open to receiving and then adjust as a result.
Jeremy, you're going to have to come back. I've got so much more to get to. But before I let you go, I got one more, which is I ask this questions of executives and senior contact center leaders all the time, which is I've got my son's in college now, and I think he's going to be 21 in a couple of months. I can't believe
Wow.
it. So I asked the question. So I'm at that stage right now. My kids are working. Would you want your kid to work in your contact center for
Mm.
5 years?
So let's assume in the scenario I'm not still the boss because my kids shouldn't be working for me for so many reasons, right? Nepotism certainly being one of them, but also
The relationship
dad,
might, yes, you might
yes,
end up
yeah,
firing your kid. This thing might get awkward.
yes. My oldest daughter would show up late and I'd have to fire her. My youngest daughter would probably be a pretty good employee, actually. But if we assume that, and we assume that the culture remains the
Yeah,
same after I leave,
yeah.
then yeah, if they want to, absolutely. I mentioned this earlier, like truly work with some amazing people. The when we ask our people what do they love about being here, number one answer is always the people that I lead,
Mhm.
the colleagues, the people that become my friends and colleagues I respect and all of that. Like we've got this really amazing culture where we are there for each other, we lift each other up, we can count on each other, we have fun, all of that. So they would be working with some amazing people. But then two, one of the reasons you should work for an airline is for the flight benefits. And so, yeah, my kids were like, listen, I want to travel the world. I want to see, and I'm not having to pick up the bill. Then yeah, absolutely. They should come into work at Sun Country, take advantage of the flight benefits and work with some really amazing.
Jeremy, this has been awesome. This has gone much better than I was even hoping, and I had pretty high hopes. As a parting word, are you optimistic about our business, this contact center business? Are you optimistic about contact centers, about contact center employees, about customer service in this age of AI? Seems to be, oh my gosh, we had a whole conversation without AI. Look at us. We should give ourselves an award.
That's amazing. That's
Uh,
amazing.
are you optimistic about the future?
Yeah, I am. I love this space. There's amazing people that are working in it. The AI conversation is an interesting one. In 5 years there's going to be no call center agents, whatever. I like that's BS. But yeah, it is. I mean, I appreciate the fact I mentioned this earlier. Like, there's been people that have been beating the drum of like, let's do this right, let's do it well, let's take care of our people. I think that we do need to like let the pendulum swing back a little bit to like pragmatism and not fluffy
Rainbows and
unicorns and
yeah,
rainbows and like all we have to do is hug our employees and customers and they'll all love us forever. Like we've got to quit doing that. But absolutely, like I've been in this space for about 20 years. We'll see when I retire. I've got at least 10 or maybe even 20 years left in me and I intend to spend it in the space.
awesome. Jeremy, thank you so much for doing this. I would love to have you back. I can't wait for folks to listen to this. We're going to put Jeremy's info. He's prolific on LinkedIn. Contact him there and reach out to him. Thanks so much, Jeremy, for coming.
Thanks for having me.